Yeah. So I'd like to ask you a question about virtual economies and this hot term metaverse. We haven't seen a grand scale metaverse exist. There's no current thing such as the metaverse, pardon me, metaverse by at least by my standard. I'm wondering what your perspective on a potential metaverse might be. I know you talked about value creation within the Upland game, such as people building their own businesses. I'm wondering if you have any insights on what it might take for people to really have a mass scale virtual economy in a way that's sustainable. I'm wondering if you even think it's possible at all.
I think it will. Yes, first of all, yes, it will be possible. But the problems are only people, when Mark Zuckerberg, when he announced the metaverse, right, like 50 months ago or something, then everyone saw, this 3D world, and then the expectations were so high. Oh, we need to have that right away, and everything is there. But the metaverse is just getting started, right? And just thinking about the internet, right? I mean, when it became, for the first time, a little bit more consumer friendly was the early 90s with the Mosaic browser, which became Netscape browser. And it took, 10, 15 years to develop, right? I think the metaverse will develop probably a little bit faster because we have much more technology in our hands these days. But the metaverse is still something where I think it's not necessarily just virtual reality, augmented reality, or whatever, right? It's much more where people immerse in a, let's say, socio-economic way, right? They go into there maybe to entertain themselves, to meet with others, right? Or they go there eventually to make some money, and that is something which is what the metaverse is. But probably it's going to look a little bit different in 10 years than what everyone is expecting.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting from an economics perspective. One of the things I commonly do is speak to game economists from MMOs. I just had the economist of Star Atlas on the podcast, and we discussed the potential existence of a metaverse and the emergence of these virtual economies. And it's definitely an interesting topic and something that I think will also continue to grow over the next 10, 15 years, as you had mentioned. But it's a difficult thing to see how it'll emerge. And as you mentioned, there's some technological limitations at this point in terms of what can be developed, whether that's a virtual headsets or just logistical problems people just can't do, such as like interoperability, right? That's a common one you hear in the Web3 space. That's very difficult to achieve, if at all possible.
Yeah, so to that I have to say, first of all, wearing here the you can see it on my background, the Upland hat is really interoperability. I mean, what differentiates us in Web3 metaverse from maybe the traditional metaverse, you can still argue, are they really metaverse, or are they more games when they're close? But the idea of, for instance, Web3 metaverse is really that we want to drive this interoperability and the user centric approach and the asset ownership right much further. And in Upland, what we have created is called the NFT portal, right? So the assets, the NFTs are represented as NFTs, and you can take those assets, and import them from other chains or games into Upland and export them. I mean, we just launched an alpha, and you were able to import some CryptoKitties. You were able to import some stuff from the Wax blockchain, and we're going to roll it out much further. So that actually, first of all, gives people the freedom, right? They're not bound to this walled garden of, quotation marks, of Upland. No, they can take stuff elsewhere. The challenge is, of course, when you want to bring your digital goods now to another world, like Sandbox or whatever, then you have to also follow, the design guidelines. It has to look different because a car in Upland looks different than a car would look like in Sandbox. You would need to also transfer let's say, the characteristics of the car. Maybe, you drove a race in Upland and it has been damaged. So is the damage also represented in Sandbox? So there's a lot of detailed questions. And those detailed questions are very important. And in that context, we are going to see a lot of standards to be launched, either from companies who are proposing those standards and hope that they will getting adopted by other metaverses, or what we also did. So last year, actually, I invited all the founders and CEOs of the big metaverses together into one room. We met in New York, and we have now over 1,000 companies who registered for the Open Metaverse Alliance for Web3, called OMA3. So it's oma3.org, where we actively work on the topic of interoperability. There we cover, we have different work groups started there. And, anyone who's listening to this podcast, happy to, you can join and register there. But the work groups are things like asset transfer, portaling, right, or ecosystems. So, and we're also working with the MSF Metaverse Standards Forum to coordinate, because they are more, let's say, the traditional world, while we are the Web3 world. We're coordinating also with them. So, but the idea is really, the big vision is, that in the future, and I always say that people always are asking, how you see the future there? I would love that in 10 years, and just, maybe, metaphorically speaking, every user has his locker, and in that locker, he has all the assets he owns, or she, and all the identities in there. So when I now say I want to go from one world to the other, I, as the user, it's very user-centric, user-controlled, I can decide what I want to take into that world and take out. So let's see if we get there. But I mean, we have the clear vision that we want to work on that in this direction.
That's interesting.